kind of figures, like Arnold Schwarzenegger type action movie characters now, whereas originally, you know, the what was so good about a lot of the early gangster rap, if that's what you want to call it, was that kind of approach where it was like, you know, this is the giving an explanation, you know, this is the context for this, you know what I mean? You know, so when it's it's primarily a West Coast LA based thing because of the Crips and the Bloods, and how that's so much part of like the culture of that city for a huge part of the population of that city. That's part of their everyday life. Doesn't mean they like it or are necessarily involved in it, but it's a big part of their identity. And so what was really good about a lot of that old stuff, it really would put you, you know, give you that perspective to kind of understand it. I mean, as you know, being really young and listening to a lot of that, and then seeing things like the LA riots, you know, I feel like gave me a much greater depth of understanding of something like that at a very young age, where otherwise, if I'd just been reliant on what I was seeing, you know, in mainstream pop culture and on mainstream television, mainstream radio, I probably wouldn't really have understood anything about that, and probably would have just gone, okay, whatever, I like switched off, not really taking it in. So, but I mean, this is a bigger picture there, really, where I just think hip hop has definitely been manipulated in terms of what's invested in. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like if you've got something, supply and demand, right? So if you've got a product that people want, somebody will come and back it and invest in it just because they see an opportunity to make profit share out of it. And so I think what happened was, you know, in the early days, it was like, okay, this guy's the new hot guy. Oh, he's going to sell loads of records, right? Let's get behind him. You know, so you have these major labels getting behind these guys who are actually saying some pretty controversial stuff. But that's cool. The controversy was only adding to the, you know, getting in the newspapers and getting more record sales. But then after a certain point, I think there started to become a political agenda to kind of limit the impact of that music. You know, once the powers that be started to really see how much, you know, impact and power, you know, the music had, there was a definite kind of U-turn in terms of what hip hop is kind of allowed to get beyond a certain level. I mean, I say, for example, you know, there's a ridiculous TV program on the other day about the greatest moments in hip hop, and the number one moment in hip hop, according to this TV program, was Obama becoming the president of the United States, which obviously is ridiculous. But on top of that, the track that they played underneath the clip was Dead Prez, It's Bigger Than Hip Hop. Now, M1 from Dead Prez was on Twitter straight away just cursing, going, how, you know, I didn't see it, so I don't know what the quote is, but, you know, cursing the fact that they're using his tune to endorse the inauguration of Obama as the greatest moment in hip hop. Yeah, and also a political figure that is very far removed from what the agenda behind the music of Dead Prez is. And, you know, that, again, an example of that tune was huge. Probably one of the biggest hip hop tunes of the last 10, 15 years, or I can't remember when it came out now. Yeah. They, as a group, and that track itself, did not feature anywhere. You know, those guys as a group with a political agenda did not feature anywhere in this documentary. The track It's Bigger Than Hip Hop did not feature anywhere until being used to prop up this idea of Obama's inauguration being somehow a victory for hip hop culture. And, you know, that says a lot, because there's a group where if that had been, you know, if they put that record out in the kind of late 80s, early to mid 90s, they would have been heavily, you know, there'd have been a lot of investment in them, and they would have been, you know, really pushed to become, you know, basically superstars, the way, say, like a group like Public Enemy was in the 80s. I think there was a definite agenda with Dead Prez when that track just blew up so much, and that was a big club tune. You know, it's a tune that's very political, but they play it in a club and people are getting drunk and getting fucked up, getting effed up, you can edit that, and would dance to it. And so that's a threat, because you can't just pigeonhole it as, oh, that's conscious rap, we don't, try and kind of ghettoize it in some kind of sub-genre. That was just a big tune, biggest hip-hop tune of the time, and at a time when hip-hop was the biggest selling music genre in the world, so therefore one of the biggest tunes in the world at the time. Where are they? Where is that group? When did Dead Prez last put an album out? At what point have they had any kind of major label backing beyond that first album? They haven't. You have to kind of question that. You have to look into what's behind that. At the same time, you're getting all these kind of... Well, at the same time, you've got... And nothing, not to take away from the hard work that these guys, I've got a lot of respect for, your Jay-Z's and your Kanye Wests in terms of the work ethic and even like their ability as, in terms of as a rapper and being able to say, this guy's good at what he does. So I have total respect. But from a social, political point of view, you've got a group like Dead Prez disappearing into, definitely just gone forever. And then you've got these guys really getting pushed up to the, top of the music industry, who, there really is a very Eurocentric and pro-capitalist kind of ethos to the music and the image and everything that they represent and portray. And again, that is the dominant image of hip-hop today, is, look at this guy, self-made man. He used to sell crack, and now here he is at Wimbledon. And it's that thing where it's like it's okay to do crime. You fulfill stereotypes, right? Mm-hmm. So that is, on the one hand, that's serving a purpose for the powers that be. Yeah, this is how you get successful. You go from being like a neighborhood drug dealer to some kind of like in the pockets of the Freemasons. And it's also this kind of rags to riches fantasy. It's like a modern day fairy tale, and your average kid who is selling crack on an estate is never going to become Jay-Z, but it's enforcing that idea that, that's what you do, and then at some point that's going to get you out and it's going to get you legit. But when you get legit, don't try and, don't take that money or that power to have any kind of particular voice or do anything that's particularly like kind of controversial or going to shake up the system or
too much. Exactly.
But what you do is you're now accepted in society, so that's cool, you've made it. And it's like, well, what does that say? It's very different to what the dominant image of hip hop was when the biggest group in the world, the biggest hip hop group, was Public Enemy. And as you say, people like Ice Cube, who nowadays most people would probably go, oh, Ice Cube gangster rap, and assume that it was some kind of nonsensical shoot 'em up, slap a hoe, glorifying drug dealing and glorifying violence and all this kind of nonsense. In reality, that music had a great deal of depth and, political social commentary running throughout the music. So it's been stripped of its power, I think, hip hop, really. It's really quite sad. I think it's gone from being a revolutionary culture to becoming a tool to promote and further the capitalist ideology of the dominant powers in Western society. And I think that's that's the sad reality of it. But I guess, it happens to any kind of counterculture. As it begins to dominate mainstream culture, it has to be sedated. It has to be, they have to take the sting out of its tail somehow. Do you know what I mean? And it's
So it is really as simple as if you're two different hip hop artists or artists, whatever, the one that's talks a bit of truth, a bit, comes across as as humble, even if he like curses here and there, you know. But if he doesn't endorse this like idea of like materialism, he's dropped, or she's dropped.
Oh yeah.
Easy. But
there's a definite agenda. Okay, like there's so many examples, but I mean just things that spring to mind. So say for example, something else that was on TV recently, because there's this whole season, Channel 4 Street Summer, and they're kind of dipping into hip hop and trying to show certain things. And there's a one example is there's this clash in terms of how the powers that be want hip hop to be perceived, and then at a certain point, once that's established, then it's kind of set. It's kind of, it's like you said earlier something about I can't even remember the lyric, but Penn being the scapegoat, or we being scapegoated. Say for example an artist like Giggs from South London, who openly just talks about drug dealing. That's the main topic of his music, and he does have a background in he's been to prison, whatever. So Operation Trident actively tried to stop his record label from signing him, but then at the same time, why is a record label wanting to sign an artist who's talking about these things? Because that's what's going to sell. So there's this inherent kind of like, there's kind of setting up this clash where it's really just smoke and mirrors, really, because it's like it's just a puppet show, really, isn't it? It's just to kind of people acting out the acting out the roles that will then it place them strategically to be used as examples of what is right and what is wrong. So say for example, this guy, it's bad, it's evil, he's talking about these things, so that's why the police are trying to shut him down. So therefore here you go, the police are the good guys, and here's the bad guy, the evil rapper who's rapping about gun crime and selling drugs and glorifying it, and it further justifies the existence of something like Operation Trident, which to me is in itself racist. The very existence of that operation is racist in itself, because you're saying Operation Trident specifies in gun crime in the black community. Just that alone, and the amount of prominence that gets in the media, you're constantly associating gun crime with black community, gun crime, black community, gun crime, black community. They don't make guns in the black community. Guns are not exclusive. Gun crime is far from exclusive to black people. But this in itself is drummed into us constantly. And so therefore, it's great. It's great for them to have someone like Giggs there to kind of play out that role. And it's like a Punch and Judy show, almost. And I can't. I'm trying to think. Sorry, man. My mind's going off at different tangents. But I mean, I'm trying to remember what your original point was, because there's something else that I was going to.
Just how. If so, on the other side, you could be a rapper that is like Jay-Z or something that he's being able to be propped up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not talented either, but he is. But like, he's propped up and he's got all this attention, all these endorsements, because he does endorse a certain idea of like how like money makes you happy.
Definitely.
Well, a lot of money, too much money makes you happy. Yeah, that's the only thing that makes you happy.
No, definitely. I think the thread that I was losing, it was what you were making reference to, kind of the content as well of the lyrics. Okay, whether someone's how much they might be cursing or whatever, but it's more about the content, and that I think is something that really people need to address and think about, because what is acceptable